Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. If you're looking for a spot in the Smokies, Parkside Cabin Rentals have great cabins of all sorts and sizes and layouts all across Sevier County. Stay close to the action or get back to nature. Visit their website today, folks. You get all the stuff that's included there, including the free parking in downtown Gatlinburg. Parkside Cabin Rentals. Great stuff. All right, the NCAA Selection Committee did a mock selection process this week. They announced the results yesterday on CBS. Tennessee was given a #1 seed in the South region. That is the Louisville region. So if that came to play out, if you were fighting for the Final Four, you'd be doing it in Louisville, which is an easy trip for Tennessee fans. North Carolina, Purdue, and a very good Nevada squad were the 2, 3, and 4 seeds in Tennessee's region. Now, what the NCAA Selection Committee also said was Tennessee would not be the #1 overall. They're ranked #1 in the country, but they would actually be, and the committee chair said it's kind of 1 and 1A. Duke would be the 1, Tennessee would be the 1A due to strength of schedule, which 3 weeks ago when we were debating whether Tennessee would get the #1 ranking, we put up on this show the strength of schedule for both teams and said could go to Duke. It didn't in the rankings. The NCAA says it would. Here's what I want to ask you guys. Let me put up the remaining schedule for Tennessee. There we go. Thank you. South Carolina and at Kentucky, 5th-ranked Kentucky. You see the net rankings. That has replaced RPI. That's on the far right. SEC schedule, overall schedule, net rankings on the far right. South Carolina, #5 Kentucky. Vanderbilt, who's terrible. Everybody else decent. 21st ranked LSU on the road. They're 17th in the net. At Ole Miss, they're top 40. #5 Kentucky again. Mississippi State, 27th. Auburn, 20th. Is that enough to make up difference on Duke? If you continue to win, let's say you drop 2 games and you finish 16-2, you're probably going to win the SEC. Is that good enough strength of schedule to make up the ground on Duke?
I think it is, but I don't know Duke's rest of the schedule, but I think it is. When you got 5 teams that are in the top 30, when you got Kentucky twice, you got Auburn at the end of the year, that's pretty strong. So I think it could, again, I don't know what Duke has, but right. I think that there is a chance that could make it up.
I believe Duke's next 5 opponents, or maybe 5 or 6, are ranked opponents as well. North Carolina, Syracuse. I mean, you look at that league; it's pretty stout. So I think it's who's just going to win down the stretch. But it's going to be close. But Tennessee's got to take care of business. Like you said, they've got the tougher part of their schedule. Those net rankings, Tennessee's previous part of the schedule, SEC schedule, net ranking average was about 74. This average that you just showed is 43. Florida is the highest ranked team that they've played up to this point. Their ranking is worse than the average of what Tennessee's about to play. So Tennessee's got a tough segment of their schedule.
Guys, your thoughts on Tennessee and the strength of schedule thing. If you get a #1 seed and you're worried that, well, we were the 3rd #1 or the 2nd #1, you're kind of splitting hairs at that point. You're complaining about very little in my book. Just a #1 seed or heck, a #2 seed. If you wind up losing a couple down the stretch against the tougher schedule and you wind up with a #2 seed, I think there's nothing to cry about if you're a Tennessee fan, if you're a 1 or a 2.
Yeah, Tennessee's already put itself in a great position, especially with the schedule and the opportunity that's ahead. Duke has already swept against Virginia, so that helps Duke. But with those tough games, they're probably saying about North Carolina what Tennessee's saying about Kentucky. Mike, like you mentioned earlier, if Tennessee were to sweep Kentucky, get a win at Rupp, that would be huge with the opportunity.
And I want to reiterate something my buddy Chuck said in the first segment. Enjoy the ride right now because it's going to get tougher. You look at that bracket, maybe a Nevada upsets or a loyal Chicago upsets Tennessee in the Sweet 16, and that's a bad ending, but it doesn't nullify what's going on right now, in my opinion. So enjoy it right now.
Give me a #2 in a close proximity to Knoxville as opposed to a #1 out west. As a coaching staff, you rather have an environment that your fans can travel to than be a #1, even though it's cool to say you're a #1 and be shipped out west.
The other thing is, in terms of ranking the #1s, the #2s, you're the 2nd one, you're the 3rd one. It's so opinion based that how many times have we looked at it and said, wow, this team is Dick Vitale and Jay Billis will argue, this team was the #2, the 2nd 1 seed, and look what they've got. It's tougher than this team and this team and this. So just because, well, you're the #2 overall, you maybe get the toughest draw just the way it turns out. You shouldn't, but we see it every year where somebody, well, wait a second, they're a 4 seed, but Lord, look at their path. So even if you're a #1, low #1 or a #2, I wouldn't sweat it unless you're talking about what Mark's talking about here. You're going to have so many Vols ready to travel this year
Yeah.
Yes.
that you want to be somewhere in an area where they can get to. Other than that, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself.
Think about this conversation earlier in the show when you asked, you imagine talking about an 18-game winning streak? The conversation right now is the number 1 overall or the number 2 overall team entering the tournament. That's where the conversation is now with Tennessee hoops.
Yeah, it's
And
mighty impressive.
And traveling, all of our wives even want to travel to these tournament games. That's another sign that everyone's buying in. Our wives are like, let's go to the Final Four.
When we come back, we are going to discuss Tennessee versus Kentucky. Will Tennessee win? Will Tennessee lose? We'll tell you why either way. That'll be Mark Pancrat's job. But also, I'm going to show you Tennessee's history at Rupp Arena this century. They've gone up there as a top 5 team more than I had remembered. Come on back. It's interesting stuff on the Sports Source.